I have lived a life split into two halves. The first half in India, where I spent my childhood, got my basic education, got married, started a family. My roots were planted firmly there in language, tradition, family, and rhythm. Then I moved to the United States and spent the second half there in a place that gave me wings. Wings to explore, wings to build, wings to think differently, to experience ideas and landscapes I could have never imagined as a boy growing up in Kolkata. Those wings have been a gift. They have carried me far. They have helped me grow professionally. They've helped me raise a family. They've helped me ask new questions and see the world with a wider lens. They've even helped a non-runner like me run marathons after 55. They've helped my wife and me raise 3 wonderful daughters. They've helped me build technology companies that operate across borders. The wings I have grown in the USA have shown me just how much is possible when you dare to fly. But here's something that I rarely admit. For all the movement, all the momentum, for all the adventures, life with only wings can feel ungrounded, hollow even, especially when your days are filled with busyness but not belonging. And then something shifted. I began working on something that reconnected me to India in a deeper, more purposeful way. It wasn't just a job or a project. It felt like a return. And for the first time in years, the wings I had grown in the West were finally in service to the roots I never left behind. That's when it all came together. The idea that we are not meant to choose between roots or wings. It's not an either or choice. We are meant to hold both, to be anchored and in motion. We are meant to be a kite that is up there, flying away, seeing new lands, but still attached to the kite owner on the ground using a thin strand. Without the connection to the owner, the kite simply flies aimlessly, the way the wind blows and finally gets lost. My name is Siva Bala Narayanan. I created Roots and Wings podcast because I believe the future for India, for the world, and for each of us is not really about choosing between roots and wings, tradition and transformation. It's about learning to carry both. And in this podcast, we will explore what that really means through stories, reflections, Sanskrit insights, Tamil literature, interviews, and shared experiences. So whether you are in Mumbai or Manchester, Bengaluru or Boston, whether you are building a company, raising a child, or simply figuring out your next move, Roots and Wings is an invitation to reflect, to rediscover, to grow. Welcome to episode 1. Let's begin. In the first few episodes of Roots and Wings, we're going to talk about growth. What does growth mean? Now, for a newborn, growth means developing organs, gaining weight, learning to sit, crawl, walk, right? But what does growth mean for an adult? We say someone is growing older, but that's just a chronological assessment, right? What does it really mean to grow. What does growth mean for a school, a company, a hospital? Now, a school might measure growth in enrollments or number of branches. A company might look at revenue or market share. A hospital might count patients served or treatments delivered. But is that really the right way to measure growth? And what about a country? Let's take India. What does it mean for India to grow? Let's take an example, the concept of Vikshit Bharat. Vikshit Bharat is the Indian government's vision for what India can become in its 100th year of independence, which would be 2047. A developed, confident, self-reliant, and prosperous nation. But if you listen to most discussions, online or offline, they focus almost entirely on what the government should do. Build infrastructure, improve education, reform policies, attract investment. Yes, all that matters. But that's not the whole picture. Countries don't rise because governments act alone. They rise when people, individuals, families, communities begin to think and act differently. Because at the individual level, when people talk about India at 2047, you will often hear defeatist voices. This country is too corrupt to change. India moves 2 steps forward, 1 step back. The government doesn't care about people like us. There is too much inequality. The rich get richer. Look at the traffic, the pollution. We are not ready. We are too diverse to agree on anything. Our education system is broken. The best minds settle abroad. We are always blaming each other. Hindu, Muslim, North, South. Indians just don't follow rules. We don't innovate, we just copy. One person can't make a difference. India has potential, but only on paper. Vikshit Bharat 2047 is just a political slogan. The real action is in Silicon Valley, not Delhi or Bengaluru. You've probably heard one of these hundreds of statements. Maybe you have even said one. I know I have. India is complex. Change is hard. Systems are flawed. And the past gives us plenty of reasons to be cautious. So, what do we do with all this skepticism, frustrations, and complaints? Skepticism is only useful if it leads to responsibility, not resignation. The challenge is to turn frustration into fuel, to use it as momentum, not an excuse. Which leads me to a strong conclusion. India at 2047 cannot be achieved without individual change, yours and mine. Because beneath every one of these complaints lies a hidden invitation to the individual. If the system feels broken, maybe it needs you to fix just one piece. If people don't follow rules, maybe it begins with you. If the best minds are leaving, what if the real opportunity is to stay, to build, or at least to contribute from wherever you are? The India 2047 vision isn't just a government document. It's a mirror. It reflects back who we are and who we are willing to become. And if enough individuals, people like you and me, choose to act with clarity and purpose, then the concerns we have listed aren't roadblocks, they are rallying points. For India to change, we need to change. The kind of personal change that permeates through the environment, affecting change in the family, change in the neighborhood, change in the state, change in the country. That ripple effect, where your growth sparks growth in others, is what I call real growth. If you change in an island and it has no impact on anyone else or anything else, that's still change, but not growth. This series, India at 2047, is not a spectator sport. We will focus on practical ways to effect such infectious positive change so as to achieve the 2047 goal. So how do we change? Which qualities of ours should change? Which habits should be discarded? Which new habits need to be acquired? What is the rule book for picking the places where change needs to happen? Let's take inspiration from the Bhagavad Gita. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Urdhva Moolamadha Shakham Ashwatham Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Savedavit. This verse from chapter 15 of the Bhagavad Gita offers a beautiful metaphor and a place for us to start putting together a rule book for growth. The Ashwatha tree. It describes a tree with roots that grow upward and branches that spread downward. It's a symbol of the universe where the source is above, invisible like roots, and divine, and the branches are the visible world. This tree invites us to flip our usual thinking. Real nourishment doesn't come from chasing the external. It comes from aligning with the higher, the unseen. And unseen doesn't necessarily mean God. It can mean purpose, higher thoughts, culture, character. So our roots aren't just our family or background. They are connected to something bigger. And our wings, like the tree's branches, are our actions, our creations, our interactions with the world. But we are not all the same kind of tree, right? We have different roots. Our wings, our branches, our reach comes in different shapes and sizes and strengths. That's why before we can truly contribute to India at 2047 or the world, we need to understand who we are, what kind of nourishment we need, and what kind of fruit we are meant to bear. Before we can effect change, we need to discover the real us. This brings us to two powerful ideas: Swadharma and superpower. Let's start with Swadharma. Don't let the Sanskrit terms scare you off. These are simple ideas, and I promise they apply to everyday people, not just philosophers or spiritual seekers. Let's break them down in plain terms and with stories that might sound a lot like our own lives. Swadharma comes from two Sanskrit words. Swa, meaning self or one's own, and dharma means path or duty or inner law. Together, Swadharma means your own path. It's not something society assigns to you or something borrowed from others. It's the work, the role, the way of being that arises from your true nature. It's who you are meant to be and how you are meant to serve. One phrase that captures the importance of Swadharma comes from chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita. Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha paradharmat swanushthitat. Better to follow one's own dharma imperfectly than to follow another's perfectly. To bring this alive, let me share a quick story. Let's take Sridhar Vembu, the founder of Zoho, one of India's most respected tech companies. He built $1 billion software business from scratch with a strong presence in Silicon Valley. But a few years ago, he made an unusual decision. He moved back to a small village in Tamil Nadu and began running the company from there. Not for optics, not for nostalgia, but because it aligned with something deeper. He wanted to create jobs and innovation in rural India to show that world-class technology could grow from the ground up, literally. For him, Swadharma wasn't just about writing code or scaling globally. It was about where or for whom that work would matter. Superpower, in our context, doesn't mean the ability to fly or climb walls. It's not about being extraordinary in the Marvel comic sense. In fact, the term superpower has become quite fashionable lately in psychology circles, leadership coaching, and even among Gen Z professionals and creators. The superpower concept is about recognizing that each of us has a unique strength, something we do effortlessly, something that energizes us and uplifts us. It's a gift or a specialized tool you bring to your path. The way you make your Swadharma come alive. Let me give you another example. Years ago, when I was a faculty member at a university, the chair of our department was a renowned expert in infectious diseases. He had many gifts, deep knowledge, leadership presence, but there was one superpower that stood out, and it had nothing to do with medicine. In every meeting, when a proposal or plan was being discussed, Paul had this rare habit. He would point out a problem, but almost always, in the very next breath, he would offer a thoughtful solution. Most people are content to spot what's broken. Very few take that extra step, especially in real time. Paul's ability to move from critique to constructive thinking seamlessly and consistently was his superpower. I've rarely seen it in anyone else. So in summary, Swadharma is the root. Superpower is the wing. But they don't just coexist. They energize each other. Sridhar Vembu's superpower was building tech. That didn't change, but it became more alive, more honest, once it was aligned with his roots. Think of Swadharma as matter, grounding, steady, your personal blueprint. And think of your superpower as energy, dynamic, outward moving, expressive. When you act on your superpower, you're not just making things happen, you're also testing and strengthening your roots. Your actions stretch you, challenge you, and reveal your deeper nature. And in return, your swadharma, your inner alignment, gives your superpower direction. It makes sure your energy isn't scattered or performative, but purposeful. This isn't a balance, it's a living loop. Roots feed wings, wings strengthen roots. Together, they make us grow. Swadharma is our true nature, our personal dharma, our responsibility, our path. Superpower is the strength we bring to that path, our unique gift. If you don't know your swadharma, you may soar, but without direction. If you don't know your superpower, you may stay grounded, but never take flight. How do we discover our swadharma? How do we discover our superpower? Well, I have good news and bad news. The good news is that they both can be discovered, and in the next few episodes, we'll walk through specific ways in which we can find them. The bad news is that we need to do some preparatory work before we can embark on the discovery of swadharma and superpower. We need to first change our mindset in several ways. Let me explain why mindset change is so important. Before we even begin to discover our swadharma or superpower, imagine a small hill, freshly covered in snow. A group of children begins at the top, sliding down on skateboards. The first few rides are slow and wobbly, but as they repeat the motion up the hill, down the same route, their paths start to form deep grooves in the snow. Over time, those grooves become slick and hard-packed. Now, when they start from the top, the board almost automatically follows the same path. Even if they want to change direction halfway down, they can't. The track pulls them in. The children can stretch out their hands and touch and feel the snow on either side, but the path beneath them is set. That's how the human brain works. Each time we think a certain way about ourselves, our worth, our limitations, our past, we reinforce a mental groove. And soon, that mental path becomes the default. Fast, automatic, familiar, even if it no longer serves us. Mindset change is like stepping off that well-worn track and carving a new path in the snow. It's not easy. It takes effort, awareness, and sometimes discomfort. But it's the only way to reach a different destination. If we want to discover a new swadharma or tap into a hidden superpower, we have to first unlearn the grooves we have created and begin again. Otherwise, it's easy to get swept up into what others are doing or what success is supposed to look like, especially when you're just trying to make it through the day. Without a shift in mindset, we chase someone else's dream. We build lives that may be impressive, but not right. So, in the coming episodes, we will explore 3 stages. Mindset change, how to think clearly and courageously in new ways that we are not used to. Discovery, using the mindset change, how do we find our swadharma and superpower? And finally, action, how to apply our swadharma and superpower meaningfully, especially in the context of India at 2047. This journey isn't just for individuals. It's for institutions, for schools, hospitals, businesses, NGOs, and it's just as relevant for CEOs, diplomats, faculty members, and Indo-US business leaders trying to bridge cultures and drive change. When companies align their strategies with Swadharma, when diplomatic missions build with both cultural roots and innovative wings, real partnerships emerge. This isn't a lecture. It's a shared walk, a conversation across borders, across time, and sometimes across miles as I run and reflect. Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds great in theory, but who has time for mindset change or swadharma when you're struggling to pay rent, juggling 3 kids and a full-time job, or facing everyday pressures that feel overwhelming? I hear you. I've been there in different ways. And this podcast isn't about having everything figured out or carving out hours of solitude. It's about planting seeds of awareness in the midst of everyday life. You can reflect while doing the dishes. You can ask questions while commuting. You can rediscover your energy even in the margins of a packed schedule. Because growth is not something reserved for the lucky or for the free. It's for everyone willing to pause, breathe, and ask, what really matters to me? And if you are looking at India from afar as a global business leader, investor, or faculty member, your success won't just come from numbers or forecasts. It'll come from tuning into India's rhythm, its culture, its aspirations. And that starts with your own internal alignment. What really matters to you? Even a homemaker managing meals, laundry, school pickup, in-laws, and a job on the side can pause for a moment while chopping vegetables or waiting at a bus stop and ask, what part of this feels truly mine? What strength am I using every day that I haven't named yet? That reflection, however small, is the beginning of transformation. And if you're a retired elder thinking, I've done my part, what more is left for me to contribute? I want to say, your presence, your story, your wisdom still matter. You may no longer be in the driver's seat, but you can still shape the journey by mentoring, by sharing, by simply showing that growth never ends. Or maybe you're a student who's always come last in class and secretly believes that you have no shot in this life for yourself, let alone helping the country. But what if that belief isn't the truth? Just a habit. Your swadharma and superpower may not fit into an exam sheet or ranks, but that doesn't make them any less real. And this journey is for you too. If enough of us make this effort to know ourselves, to grow deliberately, to act with both roots and wings, then India won't just meet its 2047 goals. It will surpass them. Not in GDP or rankings, but in the kind of nation we want to become. Conscious, courageous, and deeply human. Thank you for listening. This is just the beginning. Welcome to Roots and Wings. Let me leave you with One verse from the Bhagavad Gita that reminds us it's never too early or too late to walk your path. Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishthatya karma krit karyate hyavashah karma sarvav prakriti jair gunaihi. Not even for a moment does anyone remain without action. Bhagavad Gita chapter 3 verse 5. You are already performing. Why not act in the direction of truth? Until next time.